Israel Adesanya has been winning almost every single fight he's ever been in. That's until Alex Pereira broke his winning streak. After being knocked down twice, Adesanya still wants a rematch. We're going to be taking a closer look at everything that happened and where things are going, so you can get up to speed about what's going on with the boxers and what might happen in the future. Israel Adesanya versus Alex Pereira. Israel Adesanya and Alex Pereira actually first fought each other in 2016 when Pereira challenged him to a fight. Alex won the 3-round fight through a unanimous decision and even ended Israel's 12-win streak. Obviously, this was extremely unexpected since Alex Pereira wasn't even that well known, and he was just a rookie to mixed martial arts. After this, the pair actually had a rematch in March 2017 at the Glory of Heroes 7, which didn't really end all that well for Israel Adesanya. Alex ended up knocking Israel out cold with a left hook, which to this day remains the only knockout Adesanya has ever faced, or as some would say, the last stylebender. The knockout was so bad that Israel literally needed oxygen in the ring because he was struggling to remain his consciousness. Many people still think that if the two of them were to get into the ring again, that history would probably repeat itself. Israel Adesanya's coach Eugene Behrman claims that he thinks that Adesanya's mental toughness was lacking in both of the matches, which ultimately ended up being his downfall. He also said that losing this match was a great lesson for Adesanya to stop being so reckless all the time. Currently, everyone seems to be holding Pereira's win over Adesanya's head, but some of his fans still think that there's still a chance that Adesanya could still win, but no one will know until the time comes. What were the reactions of the match? Despite Pereira literally leaving Adesanya out cold, he still congratulated him personally after the match. In a YouTube video, Adesanya claims that he would beat Pereira if they were to fight again because it's different now. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Israel said that he looks forward to fighting against Pereira in his next 4 fights. When Pereira was asked about fighting against Adesanya again, he said he'd be happy to have a rematch if it meant he'd be able to win the title. Also, that winning the title is his only goal. With both the boxers willing to fight again, we might just actually have another rematch, which will probably settle the tensions once and for all. How Israel Adesanya started off his boxing career. When Adesanya was a kid, he actually wasn't really into boxing or any sport for that matter. Instead, he used to spend most of his time watching anime like Naruto or Death Note. And while not everyone was into the same thing as him because his interests were different, he got bullied for that quite a lot. But Adesanya said that the mistreatment he faced was a pretty big factor as to why he chose to pursue martial arts and kickboxing later on. When he was in college, he was inspired by the famous movie Ong Bak and decided to start training in kickboxing, and he was really good at it too. Suddenly, kickboxing became the most important thing in his life. He dedicated time to the sport and with it became a strong fighter in a matter of months. 2 years after he initially got his start, when he was 20 years old, he made the decision that ended up changing his life. He decided to let go of his studies and pursue a kickboxing career full-time. To do that, he moved to China and started his professional training. After he was confident in his training, he moved to New Zealand to kick up a notch and start his mixed martial arts training under the legend himself, Eugene Behrman. In May 2010, Adesanya beat Tim Antonio and then went on to win the next 6 fights. His career was off to a great start, but things weren't going to stay that way. The success in the fall. Adesanya's winning streak was more than enough for him to easily get into the 2014 Kunnan Fight 80-kilogram tournament, but it wasn't enough. He ended up losing in the semifinals against Simon Marcus by a split decision. He then made his debut at Glory 15, but he ended up losing against Flip Verlinden. Fortunately, he redeemed himself when he won against him in a rematch at the Glory of Heroes 3. That one took place around 3-ish months after they had fought their first fight. Afterwards, he participated in the King of the Ring Cruiserweights 2 tournament in New Zealand. He actually ended up winning the entire tournament after literally beating everyone, including some pretty experienced kickboxers like Paddy Afoa and Slava Aleksandrovich. After his success at the first tournament, he decided to participate in the Cruiserweight 3 in 2015, and well, it was no surprise that he ended up winning for the second time around. Adesanya started to really get into a lot of recognition after he won one tournament after the other. When Adesanya participated in the 2016 Glory Middleweight Contender Tournament, that's when his career really started to take off. He had more people rooting for him than ever before. In the tournament, he beat big names like Yusuri Belguri and Jason Wilness and ended up winning the whole thing. He actually fought Jason Wilness again for the Glory Middleweight Championship, but Adesanya ended up losing because of a unanimous decision. But the result was pretty controversial, and many fans even claim that the system was rigged. But I guess we'll never know. His mixed martial arts career. In early 2012, Adesanya made his professional mixed martial arts career debut with a fight against James Griffins, where he ended up knocking him down. After the match, Adesanya actually took a 2-year-long break from mixed martial arts, but returned in 2014 and scored another TKO against John Vake. In August 2015, he obliterated Song Kenan by scoring a TKO. He went on to win the Fighting Championship 20 with a first-round knockout, AFC Middleweight Championship in Australia, and the Hex Fight Series Middleweight Championship, which was also a first-round KO against Stuart Dare. Just a few days before Adesanya's match against Pereira, the Brazilian mixed martial arts kickboxer, Pereira said in an interview that he wasn't worried at all, and that the champion should be worried. He seemed pretty confident about beating him, and I guess he was right. Some other important UFC news. Since we're already on the topic of UFC, here's some other important news that's been on the rise lately. Mohamed Mokaev signs with UFC. The undefeated 21-year-old Mohamed Mokaev becomes one of the youngest fighters in the UFC. Mokaev is probably going to make his debut around early 2022, so we don't have to wait much longer to see him fight in the ring again. Mohamed has won the IMMAF World Championships twice now, and has 30 wins with 0 losses. He first started his MMA career in 2015 and is still undefeated to this day. He even had a chance to go to promote himself at the reality TV competition Dana White Contender Series, but he declined the offer and said that his impressive record should be able to speak for itself. The UFC matchmakers said that Mohamed had been on their radar for quite some time now and are glad to have him on board. Kamaru Usman wants to fight Canelo Alvarez. Kamaru Usman, the UFC welterweight champion and also ESPN's #1 pound-for-pound mixed martial artist, said in an interview that he wants to have a fight with Canelo Alvarez in the near future. He says he wants to have a match between the top pound-for-pound MMA fighters since it hasn't really happened before. Kamaru Usman claims he wants a challenge in what could be a bigger challenge than Canelo Alvarez himself. While the fans are literally dying to see this fight, Dana White, on the other hand, is not. "You don't want to fight Canelo," was White's response to his whole ordeal. Usman is still pretty adamant about fighting Canelo. He said he's as serious as he could ever be, and that he wouldn't leave his daughter for 12 weeks for nothing. Kevin Lee gets suspended for 6 months after drug test violation. Former UFC boxer Kevin Lee has been suspended by the Nevada Athletic Commission for 6 months because he tested positive for a banned substance after his fight with Daniel Rodriguez. Lee and his fans were pretty upset by this because, as it turns out, he had just took Adderall, which he prescribed to himself to treat his ADHD. It was a legit prescription that his doctors prescribed him. He forgot to apply for the therapeutic use exemption before the match. It was approved, and he could have used it during the fight. Kevin has already talked about how much he regrets not applying for it and said that he got a little arrogant. Other than the suspension, the Nevada Commission even went as far as issuing Lee a $16,500 penalty and an added $326 as an administration fee. That's a wrap for today's video. Do you think that Israel Adesanya would win if they were to have a rematch? Make sure to let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and click the subscribe button for more videos like this. See you next time.